Time for action. Let me know what you implemented from the show. I promise to respond. Plus, get the Tech Consultants Roadmap at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap. Imagine you're a small team and you want to know how to grow to a larger team, but also how you proactively manage the culture. Hi, I'm Paul Higgins and welcome to episode 538 of the Paul Higgins Show. In today's podcast, we talk to Ross Latta from Macro, and we talk about how to proactively do that culture. And if you'd like to see Ross in person, please go to YouTube at paulhigginsmentoring.com where you can see that. Ross is CEO of MacroFin. It's a multi-award winning NetSuite Alliance partner. Before starting MacroFin in 2018, Ross was a qualified chartered accountant and gained his MBA in Australia, working in multiple senior roles across professional services, technology, and the media industry. Ross has undertaken multiple system implementations on the client side and led large finance teams through organisational and process changes both in Australia and the UK. Ross has led 20 NetSuite implementations, complex multi-layered organisations, and overseen hundreds of NetSuite projects as executive sponsor and technical account support. Recently at MacroFin, Ross has successfully built an internal billing and operations system and is continually working to expand his business with the support of a talented team. Over to Ross from macrofin.co.uk. Great to have you here, Ross.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's not often I have a fellow Aussie from the other side of the world. Normally the fellow Aussies are here in Australia. You're based in London, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Been in London for 6 years. It's my second stint living here. Lived here for 2 years as well on a working holiday visa and moved back again after 5 years to start MacroFin.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Well, we're going to talk more about MacroFin. And why don't we kick off with who your ideal clients are and what problems you love to solve for them?
Sure. So our typical ideal client, we work with fast growing, scaling software and fintech businesses based in London and the UK and across Europe. And we typically work with finance directors and CFOs who may have gone through a private equity funding round, and they now are tasked with scaling up the business and ensuring they've got the proper systems in place. So we help them by designing the ideal finance operations processes and tech stack, and guide them through the ERP journey, implementing a software called NetSuite, which is the leading cloud ERP for small to mid-sized businesses, backed and owned by Oracle.
Great. And how many are already on NetSuite versus how many you introduced them to?
We, as an alliance partner, work closely with the NetSuite direct sales team. And so I would say the clients that NetSuite bring us, about 70% of our new implementation clients, and about 30% we would introduce to NetSuite, either being people in finance functions that we've worked with who've taken a step up and moved on to another business as the finance director and want to work with us again, or through our network, finance communities, and our own outbound marketing. But that ratio is shifting to be more in favor of bringing our own leads in.
Right. And of the leads you're bringing in, so you are converting some to NetSuite?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and when we get to know the business earlier on, we can help with their sort of preparation and readiness work to help them plan and prepare for the ERP selection journey. So they go in ready with their scorecard or their RFP requirements so that they can go through the process and make sure they're buying the right software from the vendor with our guidance.
Right. And you said there's a bit of a change in self-generated leads versus those that come from NetSuite. What sort of brought about that strategy?
When we started, we worked very closely with the sales team at NetSuite that focused in the software fintech vertical. And from 2020 through to 2022, we saw very rapid growth. We offered a lot of value to them as an alliance partner to help them close the deal, turn around statements of work and the scope rapidly, build rapport with the CFOs on the call because we could speak their language, being accountants who've worked client side before. We grew so rapidly with the work that came through them, through just the growth in the fintech software space in that period, and just the amount we could assist the NetSuite sales reps sell. They wanted to work with us more. But then we had a bit of a quiet patch, sort of late 2022, early 2023, due to economic conditions, interest rates going up globally, which then sort of reduced the amount of investment that the finance function was getting from the funds they had raised, or PE weren't investing as much in new businesses to grow. Plus in the UK, they had a bit of the Liz Truss budget crisis where interest rates went up even further. Plus Silicon Valley Bank collapse as well. It was a scare for a lot of businesses. A lot of our clients banked with them. When there was a bit of a lull in the market, we realized we were a bit exposed for being so reliant on the leads to come from NetSuite. And because we were so busy, we probably weren't managing the relationships with each of the sales reps at NetSuite as much as we could be. Because you've really got to be front of mind to remind them that you're there, you're available to support. Through that period, I then reached out to all the sales reps to sort of make sure they knew we were here. We can support them on all types of opportunities. And I found out from one of the top reps that she thought we had a 4 to 8 week lead time to start new projects, which is a carryover from 12 months earlier when we did have a bit of a lead time, but it just hadn't got through that. It's actually, we don't have that anymore. So it's really got to be front of mind, and we just realized we're a bit exposed there. I always knew as part of our business model, we didn't have like a dedicated sales marketing engine up front to be bringing in leads because we had so much work from NetSuite. We probably couldn't scale much faster than we were already. So that really drove a shift to be like less reliant on working with one team on one type of client opportunity.
Yeah, and it sounds like NetSuite themselves had a bit of a drop due to the market conditions. And I do get from Bloomberg an update on the UK economy every Sunday my time that your interest rates have been even higher than the pressure we've had here in Australia and the US. But so there was overall market shrunk a little, and then you realise that there was some miscommunication. And I think, that's such an important point that Ross is saying, that if you are going to rely on your vendor, whoever the brand, to get your leads, that you got to constantly stay on top and make sure that your message is aligned, because things do change. And unfortunately, it's changed, but it doesn't mean that the AEs know it's changed. So I think it's a really valuable point. But as you said, then you started creating your own. So take us through that journey. What were the steps you did to create more of your own self-generated leads?
Sure. Before I start on that point, on the relationships with the account executives at NetSuite, through that period, we did then work with each individual one to find out their priorities, how we could help them, come up with like tailored sales plans based on the target customer they were going after. So that meant we could help them work their target lists and actually help them bring through opportunities on their target list to the later stage in the cycle to get the conversations going, leveraging our relationships and network we might have, or our case studies. So we help create more opportunities for ourselves by being even more helpful with the sales reps to actually help them with their target account, rather than waiting on them to come to us with an opportunity that's already qualified. So that's definitely helped us build those relationships, help them hit their targets, but get us involved earlier on these opportunities, which will then naturally become our clients if they do then sign with NetSuite. That was the first goal. So that's really helped substantially. And then
and just
we
quickly,
hired
Ross, just on that, how have you done that? Is that by emails or by phone call? Like how have you asked for their KPIs and their target list?
If they were based in London, it'd be like meet up with them in person. NetSuite might do quarterly drinks, so I'll try and get down to those as well to chat to the reps I know and get introduced to other sales reps in other teams and just remind them. For example, I remember speaking to a sales rep in sort of February 23 at drinks, where he thought, "Oh, you guys just do the fast, rapid financials first type of implementation." It's like, no, actually, we can do services, we can do inventory-based businesses. They just didn't realize that because the reps we don't work with closely just have a reputation about us as well, educating them in person, and then other reps just getting on calls with them more regularly, reviewing their target account list, strategizing for each account. They're all quite friendly and willing to work with us because we've got a strong relationship and a reputation within NetSuite. So it's just working through each one and developing like a tailored plan for them. I put a lot of time into that.
Yes.
And then we hired a full-time sales and marketing manager. He started in July. I had a background in more IT services, sales and Microsoft products. So got him up to speed, but he's very good at the relationship side as well. So between us, we could then sort of cover more sales reps.
How did you find that person?
It came through a referral. We work with an executive coach who worked for 20 years as our head of sales before moving into psychology. They've known each other for a long time, and the executive coach had a lot of faith in our business and was confident enough to recommend the sales manager join us. So that's how we got introduced.
Right. And what was the process that they went through to know that they were the right person for you?
It was just several rounds of interviews, hearing about their history at previous companies and how they educated themselves on the market and the system they were selling, and then getting their thoughts on how they think they would hit the ground running with us, what type of sales strategies they've put in place, asking about what kind of outbound campaigns they would think would work in our market. Trying to hear much about like the sales realm and how to do that more outbound marketing that maybe Steve and I didn't have the skills and experience in, to see if that resonated and it was something that we think he would add value to the team with a new skill that we don't necessarily have in the senior management team.
Right. And I know that some partners, when you bring in somebody that doesn't have the domain experience, i.e. NetSuite, Monday, Salesforce, etc., that sometimes it can get a little tricky quickly when someone asks a technical question. How did you guys handle those situations if they did come up?
So we'd try on any call that's going to get more technical to have one of our technical consultants support our sales manager. So myself or Steve, my co-founder, or our other managers and consultants in the team, we'd always have them be on the calls that are going to be more technical to start answering NetSuite questions. Our sales manager would then be pairing with the technical person who'd be asking the technical type questions, but then might not have the skills of managing a deal through the sales cycle. Asking the right sort of leading questions to get commitment from the client, to get sort of timeline commitment set, all those types of skills the sales manager is bound to bring to us, and then train all of our other managers and consultants to be better at managing the client or the prospect through that opportunity. Client might say, oh, we'll go away and think about it and we'll come back later, and you don't hear for 2 weeks, and our staff might think, oh, that lead's gone quiet, I'll put it on hold, quiet lead. It's like, no, reach out, write this type of email, get some commitment to have a conversation, and then it works out like that. We understand where that client's at, whether they're worth pursuing or it is really on hold, and we focus our efforts elsewhere.
And how long you had this person in the role for?
Started in July last year, so that's about sort of 10 months
in the
role.
Yeah. And how long has it taken for them, I suppose, to pay their way in the simplest form?
Yeah, I'll say 5 months, 5 to 6 months. So a lot of training of like how the finance space works and what like the CFO is looking to purchase, and like what those type of interactions look like. Picked it up really quickly, so I'll give a lot of credit to him as well. But in terms of like the payoff, it's sort of, we're starting to really see that now in the first half of this year, because we're now building more momentum on our outbound campaigns, building more relationships. He's building relationships with new sales reps, and just sort of takes the time and momentum to build. Sort of a bit like a leaky tap, sort of drips through, and you do wonder when all this effort will pay off. I probably thought you could just turn the taps a bit quicker, turn up your SEO marketing, do some more webinars, and leads just come to close. But it's actually been slower. But now we're really seeing the momentum take off, and Q1 this year was one of our best ever quarters. It was our best ever quarter. So I think credit to the all-round improvement of the sales function. But probably in hindsight, where the roles are a bit different to what we thought. It was originally come in and sell new opportunities. You got a target to hit and to close. But we realized it sort of takes a team effort to close these opportunities, and the roles more changed into leading the marketing and like business development, and then coaching other team members to close opportunities, and working with our team that look after the clients who are already on NetSuite on our managed service retainer, helping train them on how to do road mapping and find upsells. So it's been more of like ended up being more of like a sales strategy role to coach all of us to be better at sales and with sales plans for different channels, as opposed to go out, find an opportunity, sell it yourself, close it yourself. And that's, I think worked well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good distinction. And I was going to ask you, like, what's the mix of marketing versus sales? Have you looked at those? And I say that selling is selling to one person, and marketing is communicating a message to many. But of that mix, what do you think their percentage of time would be?
I would think it's far more on the sales side. I think around 70% of their time on the sales side. We have a digital marketing agency, so we guide them, give a lot of feedback on what we think will hit the mark. We kind of rely on them to do more of the outbound work. But so much more of our work comes through from our network or the business development we do directly with contacts that we know in the community, or working with another partner who's running a webinar and being a guest speaker and finding like very warm opportunities from that to speak to straight away. So far more time is like working with the leads that we have to find out where they are in their journey of selecting an ERP system, and then spending the time with them through the sales cycle.
Right. And you mentioned private equity firms at the start, that they brought in some leads. Like, how are you building, or are you building a relationship with that as a channel?
Yeah, that's right. So pretty all our clients are venture capital or private equity backed. Some are listed, and we've tracked which private equity firms we've worked the most with across our clients. So if we've worked with 2 or 3 of their portfolio companies, we then ask for introductions to those private equity firms from the client, or we'll find other avenues to be introduced ourselves to then try and build relationships with those private equity firms to then have us as their sort of preferred supplier. So we've got those arrangements with several PE firms, many PE firms in this who invest in software B2B businesses and fintech businesses. They do see NetSuite as the natural next step in the system you should put in as your business grows.
Yes.
So it's about developing what's like a repeatable playbook for them so they can advise their new investment portco, work with this partner, with this system, this methodology works. Here are some references from other CFOs in our portfolio company who've been through it, so you can hear what's required on the client side and like how to make sure it's successful from the client's perspective.
Yes.
And that's what they're looking for. We offer that service to support them.
Yeah, great. And have you done any webinars or any, I suppose, one-to-many presentations to the portfolio clients, or has it mainly been,
No.
picking individual customers off as they've recommended them?
Yeah, and it's more individual based as they sort of go through the cycle with each of their portfolio companies. They will then introduce us to speak to that company. But it's a bit similar to managing the relationship with the NetSuite reps. The more
Yes.
we speak to them and remind them we're here, they're like, oh, I've got another client. It's more actually based in France, but maybe you could help out with that one. I know you're more UK based, and that does pop up as well by just being in regular contact.
Yeah, and I think that that frequency is so important, and I think bringing in someone that does that is sounds like that's been one of the key ingredients to success versus you as an owner or you as owners trying to carve out what's already a very busy day and then add that on top of. I think the difference here is that a lot of people, unfortunately, aren't good at picking the right people, the right salespeople, because I think it's the hardest role to actually recruit for in tech consulting business. But it sounds like you guys with the executive coach had a really good blend of their recommendation. And did the executive coach work with them at all when they come on board, or was it just purely the referral?
Oh yeah, they had worked with them previously in like sales coaching capacity, and then the executive coach is there to support our whole team. And the sales manager we hired didn't need any sort of support at that time. Once he started with us, he was very experienced.
Yes, I've heard that right. You said the executive coaching service is available to the team. Tell us how that works.
It's a benefit we provide in terms of like an extra sort of well-being benefits. New managers that are stepping up to management position, they have a course that he runs, sort of like a 10-session course on principles around management and emotional intelligence and the theory there to help them become better leaders, and also help us as a business that is implementing ERPs can be challenging, a lot of pressure on the client. We've also developed these skills to help manage the client through the journey as well and set their expectations and like diffuse any conflict before it happens and just make sure I've got a harmonious relationship with the client as well. He's then on retainer to work with the managers and other individuals in the team that want some coaching, improvements in these areas of consulting around like the EQ side. So he's available to work with our team members.
Right. And is that IP that he's generating, is that his IP, or is that transfer over to you so that this executive coach is no longer there? Does some of that IP still stay within the business?
It's his IP he's developed, but we've done sessions and offsites together at his place. And so that type of theory that he's come up with that applies to our business, we've got that in-house to train our team. And he's worked with our team to develop courses to train other junior consultants on these topics as well, so that our managers are then self-sufficient to teach these psychological principles of management and dealing with people and selling, so we can be self-sufficient to train our other team members.
Yeah. And you talk about team. How many team members are there at the moment?
So we're a business of 34 people at the moment. Yeah, so I was going to say, yes, we mix some in the UK and some offshore in the Philippines.
Right. Or how long have you been working in the Philippines?
It's been 4 years in the Philippines since we made our first hire there. And there's a hub of like excellent, really experienced NetSuite consulting professionals in the Philippines. And so we've worked with some like amazing people that have joined our team, slotted straight into our team. So we're all one team, no matter where people are based. Same culture, same sort of development pathways for each employee. So we've had some fantastic people that deliver great work for our clients.
Right. And are they direct to you, or are they through an outsourcing provider?
Yeah, it's through an outsourcing provider. We haven't set up a subsidiary there to hire direct, but for all intents and purposes, they're our full-time employees, run on our sort of IT software and following our performance management processes and HR policies. But they help support as an interface for like sort of local presence and help deal with more local issues.
And are they work from home, or are they working in an office?
They're all work from home since the pandemic. And we actually had our first trip out there 2 weeks ago as an SMT to go meet our Philippines colleagues. We only had one person who'd flown over for a visit pre-Christmas, but it was the first time for us to go and get to meet the rest of the team members. So we had a really nice trip to Boracay, did a lot of team building and team activities, and getting to know everybody on a personal level. So it was a fantastic 4 days away.
Yeah, and if you're watching or listening to this and you haven't been to Boracay, it's a wonderful place, as Ross said. I was lucky enough to run a business in the Philippines for over 5 years, and yeah, my children still talk very fondly about their times in Boracay and other parts of the Philippines. It's a
Right.
beautiful people and a beautiful place. But if we go back to this executive coach is one element, then you've got a mix of on and offshore. What are the other key things that you're doing to drive the culture of MacroFin?
So something I wanted to set in place is a working environment where you get to work as a consultant in a consulting business, but without some of the negatives that sometimes come with working in professional services, which can be like long hours, real focus on like billable hours over maybe the quality of the work, partners and the way they're managing you being like so too focused on those outcomes and not as worried about the well-being of the employees. And that
Yes.
I've seen in like accounting profession, people leave after 4 years and go client side where the pace is a bit slower. And I've seen from other people who've joined us from other partners, just the expectation to do 50, 60-hour weeks is there. And I wanted to address that. And I wanted to design a kind of internal processes that we can run a productive, profitable business with a high recoverable rate of what the team can output in terms of revenue and what we do book as revenues. Trying to be really as efficient as possible with our time sheeting tool that we use that make that seamless. A
Yes.
lot of coaching the team about what is work that should be done in scope or work that shouldn't be done until the scope is confirmed so we don't risk writing off time. So just to take all these measures to make that as optimal as possible so that I can run a profitable business without having to rely on the economics of the business, having people work overtime, 50, 60-hour weeks because there's lack of productivity being done. And then also we can be more price competitive as well. So it's sort of a win-win all around. And so that people get the benefits of working with interesting, fascinating clients, doing project-based work that's like really rewarding because it's a win-win for us when a job goes well and the client, and the benefits like the professional development they get from constantly learning for having working with different clients and continuing to study on NetSuite and acquire more skills. And another aspect of consulting is, as I mentioned earlier, it can be difficult if projects aren't going well and there's like clashes with the client. That can be quite emotionally taxing if you're getting off tense calls or you're going to have a really tough conversation about a project that's not going well the next day. Part of the executive coach there was to help train us on managing those conversations, developing those skills, how to handle sort of tense calls under pressure and diffuse situations. And we also just tried really hard to be really strong at the project management to make sure we're always on top of the ball. We're always doing our task by the deadline, really strong communication to the client so that if issues do go wrong, it's usually not our fault that we have to be defensive over. Understand where maybe the client's falling down in terms of can't complete their tasks in time and what extra support we can provide them. So this just takes a lot of the heat out of that, and the fact that we've got a good methodology so the ERP projects that we implement go really well and far exceed the sort of stats you hear about ERP failures. So it's just usually a positive experience all around from our clients. We just had a quote from a client who like reshared one of our LinkedIn posts with his own post about how great it was to work with us and named individual staff members of ours. For someone who's been through 3 previous NetSuite implementations, really saw the difference in how we deliver it and the quality of our team and our playbook to implement. So that's just like fantastic for the team to see like clients recognize them in the public space as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned project management. So what are you using a particular software or what are you doing for project management?
Yeah, we use a particular software, like a cloud-based tool called ClickUp. And so we built our own delivery model in that tool. And then our project managers then set that up for each client and then run that project in that system with the client having access to it as well. So that's very transparent on where each task is at and the due dates and a live up-to-date timeline.
Right. And you talked about, not working 50, 60 hours. What's the average hours that someone works in MacroFin?
Yeah, it'd be just the normal full-time hours, so between 38 to 40 hours per week. We're quite flexible as well, that if you've had a busy week at the start of the week and want to finish early on a Friday, take Friday afternoons off, sort of a policy of like no meetings on a Friday afternoon unless absolutely necessary so that people can do that, or they can use that time for study or other sort of personal tasks or career development tasks that they're working on. We're not going down the path of like a 4-day work week. Like I'm not sure if that could work in our space, just because we're working with the client side team and finding times for having impromptu meetings with the client will be difficult if we cut back on that. There's an expectation to maybe certain periods of a busy stage of a project be a bit all hands on deck. So we offer that flexibility in other ways for people to use their time wisely and trust them to make the right call. If they need to go to like a doctor's appointment in the morning or have a longer lunch to do that, it's fine. Let's make up the time later in the week.
Yeah, and I think it's a clever way of doing it. And I know the culture in the UK. I've been to London. Certainly know a little bit about it. But if you look at some European countries, it's very strict to working. In Germany, you can't. I think you can't even email people outside of work hours, as an example. What's the culture like in London and the UK, and aligned to your culture of working the 38 to 40 hours, or is it still more of the 50 to 60?
I would say in the UK, it's a bit of a halfway in between like the US culture of sort of working around the clock, working on through holidays and outside of working hours, compared to say central sort of continental Europe, where they've sort of on the other way of like not sending any emails and being like illegal to do so in some countries. I think UK is in the middle, where there is like a expectation of people sort of working harder and like having to hustle harder. But as a business, we try to set the expectation that, look, I might work out of hours because I might be busy in meetings all day, want to catch up in the evening, but no expectation for people to reply after hours. So it's like, if you get Teams notifications pinging you at 8 a.m. or 9 p.m. at night, we don't expect you to reply. Like, turn off those notifications, do it in the morning. We try and encourage like setting email delays to like send it the next day. And I think Teams now has a feature you can delay. So I try and do things like that so that it's not pinging all night if they're tempted to have a look and see something pop up that's on their mind overnight. So we really try and look after their kind of well-being to give them that separation.
Yeah.
But some people still do it. They still will reply to me late if they do see something. So I do encourage them not to do that if it's getting back.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant, and very proactive way of forming your culture, and you're getting the results because of that. So just a reminder, we're watching or listening to Latta from MacroFin. It's episode 538. What we're going to do is take a brief pause while we listen to it from our sponsors, and then we'll come back to Ross and the rapid fire round. Ever spotted your dream client on LinkedIn only to find yourself bogged down in tedious data transfer at the expense of building that critical relationship? Say goodbye to manual tasks and hello to efficiency with Surfy, S-U-R-F-E. Surfy transforms you from a virtual assistant into a sales pro by seamlessly capturing, syncing, and enriching contacts from LinkedIn into your preferred sales platform, be it Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, Copper, or even Google Sheets, all in one single click. Imagine reclaiming those precious hours spent on data entry and redirecting them towards nurturing valuable connections and closing deals, which we all love to do. With Surfy, it's not just a dream, it's your new reality. Ready to invest your sales time where it truly matters? Try Surfy today by visiting our resource page at paulhigginsmentoring.com/resources and clicking on Surfy. Elevate your sales game with Surfy, because your success starts after the click. So Ross, as I said, we've got the rapid fire round where I'm going to ask you some rapid questions and get some rapid replies. You ready for that?
Yes, let's go for it.
All right, excellent. So the first one is, what are some daily habits that you do to help drive MacroFin?
Yeah, so I found for myself, it was like really busy, stressful few years, and I had like a propensity to sort of work hard and like stress myself out, and anxiety would build, but I could manage it. But I could feel that if that kept going, I would sort of hit burnout and not be the best leader I could be and make sort of calm, rational decisions. I sort of carve time out for myself now. So I see like a PT once a week on a Tuesday morning. So that time's like blocked out. Don't go on my phone, like just focus on that for my own well-being. And then I like to listen to like a lot of podcasts to sort of switch off, sort of like political podcasts or history podcasts, because I like to be learning, but I think sometimes good to take a bit of time away from like the day-to-day busy tasks that can like fill my diary. So I'm trying to make that space for my own well-being. But when you start the business and like you've got a lot riding on it and you're really passionate about it and want to make it as successful as possible, like it can be all encompassing. I remember like during COVID, sort of up at 8 a.m. nonstop working through to the evening, like watching Netflix, wasn't as much else to do.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's some of the steps I take.
Right. And you mentioned podcasts for personal enjoyment, but what are some of the ways that you learn to scale MacroFin? What are some other ways that you do that?
Yeah, I read several books, sort of like I can't remember all the names of them, but sort of 0 to 1 and some of the other professional service type books. So great books by founders in the US that have gone on to build great businesses. I think that The Hard Thing About Hard Things was a really good book as like sort of coaching for like a CEO. So I took a lot of those on board. But then built my network I've built through my career and at university. People I've met in London who are from different walks of life, are working at larger businesses, maybe more private equity based or larger professional services. I've got sort of a close network of people who not executive directors, but they sort of know what's going on in the business. So I can like go to them for advice to get different perspectives.
Fantastic.
So that's what I lean on.
Right. And if we could grant you one wish for MacroFin, what would that be?
Wish for MacroFin. So for me, it would be just sort of this continued growth we're seeing of sort of 30 to 50% a year, just to see that not happen nicely year after year, so we can keep working with more clients, may take a bit of that stress out of constantly having to find those new opportunities to drive that growth.
Fantastic. And the last one is, what do you know now that you wish you had have known when you started MacroFin back in 2018?
Yeah, I would say it would be that we didn't know if it'd be successful or not, and we didn't know if our idea of former accountants implementing systems would take off. So Steve and I were sort of hesitant to hire more senior resources earlier to start us. So we're doing a lot more work ourselves. Didn't hire project managers straight away. With the hindsight that it was successful, we could have gone harder to hire those type of roles to help us deliver better quality projects earlier on, to free us up, win bigger clients or solve more complex problems or build our own internal processes quicker. So a little bit of like that hesitation to grow faster because we were self-funded. We didn't have investors' money to like invest in roles before the work came.
Yes.
So very much we're always hiring after the work came, and that was quite a stressful period. I think sort of advice I would give to someone else is so many like little day-to-day tasks that you have. So getting like a really good EA or a project manager to help take that off your plate, it'll free you up to do the higher value work that is what your clients are paying you for, which could be your expertise on the system or your expertise at advising them on their business practices and processes, or you might be just great at sales and just should be out there selling.
As I always say to people, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I totally agree. Go to your superpowers, the things that are unique to you, and then hand off. And that's normally about 50% of the role. So I think that's a great way to finish in a really enjoyable interview. So Ross, thanks for coming on and sharing your wisdom and knowledge today.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you. Bye. So what a great interview with Ross. And I think that proactiveness around the culture is what really stood out to me, but also, him saying that he wished he had have hired earlier. And I think if you're, just starting out like Ross was back in 2018, take that on. Reach out to Ross on LinkedIn and thank him and ask him questions. Also share this with your peers if you think that they would benefit from it, and also share the podcast with them. And remember that they will really, really thank you for that. You can watch the episode, as I said, at Paul Higgins Mentoring on YouTube, and I'll see you next time on the Paul Higgins Show. You're listening to the Paul Higgins Show, where ambitious tech consultants come to unlock their potential. After 18 years as a global leader, I launched several businesses culminating in a successful exit. I'm sharing what I learned, plus what's working now from mentoring tech consultants. You will hear leaders within our industry to help you build a business you love that allows you to do what you want. If you are looking for immediate cash flow wins to fuel your growth, go to our free ebook at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap.